Welcome to Excuse My Frenemy, the podcast where we talk about some of the big topics in sports and where two fans of rival teams try to put their sports allegiances aside, but you know we will fail to do so. Thank you for taking the time to give us a listen. My name is Shawn Brady, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Katie Cabrera. What's going on, KC?
Hey, what's going on, Shawn? Nothing much, just getting back from work and just another day, another episode. So let's jump right to it.
Speaking of another day, another episode, we've made it. We're legit. It has happened. They said it couldn't be done. Some say that it shouldn't have been done, but we've made it, Katie. Welcome to the 10th episode of Excuse My Frenemy. All right, yeah. So with that, on the 10th episode, we'll discuss the NFL. We're going to talk about Lincoln Riley going to USC. We're going to talk about the Suns' win streak. And we're going to take a dive into some mental health issues that we're seeing a lot of professional athletes going through right now. So now we can move on to our first topic, which is the NFL. KC, was a pretty impressive week for some, not for some others. But what do you want to talk about?
I was going to say, no, it wasn't very impressive. But I mean, let's just jump right to it. Let's talk about the Seahawks versus Washington. I know last week on our last podcast, I had said that the Seahawks were going to take this win, but it turns out that my beloved Seahawks did not take that win. They took an L once again. So jumping right into conclusion, of course, we have Russell Wilson starting up as their quarterback. And once again, I mean, he did what he had to do to make it work, but it just wasn't enough. I don't know what's going on. It plain as simple. It's just not their season. Shawn, what is it that you told me earlier this week that if I watched the Seahawks game, what is it that you said?
Embrace alcohol? I don't remember what I told you.
No, you said something along the lines. It was just very cringing to watch. So
I did say that. Yes. Okay.
And you kind of just said, this is one of the games where you would just kind of wouldn't mind skipping through. And yes, I do highly agree on that. I honestly thought the Seahawks were going to take this one, but they did not. So the score was 15-17. And let me tell you, the Seahawks are done for this season. Officially done. I am officially putting them at the level of USC.
So I will say this. The one thing you said that I will give you a little flack on, because you did say Russell Wilson did what he had to do. No, he did not. Again, I don't think he's healthy, but they showed many plays where he would go to throw the ball and it wouldn't be anywhere close to where the receiver was, at least not by NFL standards. Like, I would throw it and it'd be just as far off as what Russell Wilson was throwing at some of those receivers. I think the finger's still bothering him. And Washington just dominated the ball. They always had the ball. I think they ran over twice as many plays as the Seahawks did. And they put a little thing at the bottom of the screen toward the end of the game. And I wish I had taken a picture of it so I could give you the exact stat. But it was something along the lines of Washington's time of possession was the most in a non-overtime game since the 80s.
Wow.
Katie, you remember the 80s, right?
Oh, yeah. I was up in, heaven floating around.
Yeah. That's my point. The last time a team had that much time of possession, you didn't exist. That's how far back it goes. And, oh, by the way, you can't wait till, the last couple minutes of the game to get a target for DK Metcalf. That's the crazy part. I couldn't fathom that one at all. And when they finally did throw it to him, you could tell it was forced. He wasn't anywhere open, but we're we got to get him the ball. And it was just not good. I do think your season's kind of pulling in the driveway of being over. But I will say this. Right now, the last team in the playoffs is sub 500. So it may not be done, but you got a lot of teams to jump to get there. So I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, and kind of give and take what the season has been looking like. Do you really see us going through it? I mean, I'm a Seahawks fan, and I'm going to tell you here now, I don't see us pulling through. It's going to be a long shot by the end, but it's just not going to happen not this year. Maybe next year we'll get our stuff together, but not this year.
Yeah, it was a good run.
I knew that was coming. But I'm excited for this Sunday, so we shall see. We shall see. I mean, see
that's true loyalty. Your team is in the tank, and you're still excited for the next game. There's that loyalty.
I mean, at the end of the day, I love that competition. That's why we have a Cardinals versus a Seahawks fan right here. I mean, I will stand by them through the ups and downs. And now,
but I have to ask, Katie, at what point, if at all, did you turn the game off?
Mm.
Did you even watch the game?
Yeah, I did. I watched the first 5 minutes and I said, "Yep, nope, I'm out."
So now I feel like you owe me because I know you saw it, but I tweeted toward the end of the game, like the mid fourth quarter, I was like, if it wasn't for the fact I have a podcast with a Seahawks fan, I would not be watching this garbage. And now I find out you weren't even watching it. You owe me.
I do. And to be honest, it was cringing. It was freaking cringing to watch. I mean, it was kind of like watching the Saints again, and like it looked like the Seahawks were hopeless. So I was eating and I was not going to ruin a good dinner. So I said, let me turn this off and let me watch a TV show instead because I am not about to watch my team go down like this.
Yeah, but the next time you do that, let me know so I don't have to suffer alone because I was trying to be a good friend and good frenemy, and turns out like you just bailed on me.
I will. I'll shoot you a text, but in all honesty, if you see the game going south, just know right away that Katie is probably not watching this.
Okay, well, speaking of games going south, the game I am going to talk about is the Browns versus the Ravens. And you may be wondering why on the world am I picking that topic to talk about? Because, to be blunt, it was the only game I got to watch. I had to run some errands on Sunday, and I thought I'd get home to watch like the second halves of some of the games. And I got home, I turned on Red Zone just in time to see Scott Hansen saying, "Thank you for joining us. Here's the touchdown montage." Great. So the only football I got to sit down and actually look at and analyze was the Browns and Ravens, and I wanted to pull my eyeballs out when it comes to the Browns. So,
Yeah.
and the Browns had no business being in that game.
Mm-hmm.
Lamar Jackson had 4 interceptions, 3 of which I think were in the last 3 minutes of the first half, where there was like a 3-minute span where the ball was turned over 5 times by both teams.
Jeez.
Yeah, which everybody said, "Oh, Lamar Jackson carried the team." Like, no, Mark Andrews carried that team. He made like 2 or 3 catches that if he doesn't make, the Browns might win that game. And that's saying something because the Browns had a grand total of 40 rushing yards.
Yeah.
They came into the league as the number 1 ranked rushing attack, and they settled for 40 rushing yards. And they only had 17 attempts, but 2 of those are Bakefield scrambles. So they really only ran the ball 15 times. To me, that's like the equivalent of if the Chiefs look at Patrick Mahomes and say, "Hey, only throw it 15 times." Everybody would wonder, what the hell are you doing? And that's what everybody was wondering with the Browns. And the next week, the Browns get to go to Pittsburgh. But you'll never guess who the Ravens get to go to Pittsburgh next week. But you'll never guess who the Browns' next opponent is.
Who?
They have their bye week, and after their bye week, they play the Ravens again.
Oh my God.
So I hope they learn something, because otherwise it's going to be another education.
Yeah.
Okay, Casey, now that we've got those 2 ugly games out of the way, let's look at a little more positive. Let's look in the future. Let's go down our little slate of predictions for next week's games. We're going to start with what I think is the obvious game of the week and probably going to be a blowout. But the 9-2 Arizona Cardinals are coming off their bye, and they're going to Chicago to play the 4-7 Bears. They're getting Kyler Murray back. They're getting DeAndre Hopkins back, so I'm told. And Chicago hasn't really been that great of a team. You know who I'm picking, but Katie, who you got?
You know, after looking at Chicago's and Arizona's, I'm going to be with you. I'm going to go for the Cardinals for this one.
Yeah, I hope so. Because, I don't even think Justin Fields is playing.
Nope.
Their offensive line, last time I checked, can't stop a leaky faucet. So I'm expecting this to be blowout win for the Cardinals. So my apologies to any Bears fans that are listening, but I expect us to dominate you guys.
Oh, man, this should be interesting. But I honestly think the Cardinals are going to take this one. So,
well, you better hope they win, because if they lose this game after everything I just said, we're ending this podcast.
Well, you better hope that we win.
Okay, next game. The LA Chargers at 6-5 are going to Cincinnati to play the 7-4 Bengals. KC, who you got?
LA Chargers. Everybody should know by now that I am a diehard California girl. So anytime we're, up north or we're going down SoCal, I'm always going to stay SoCal. But of course, if NorCal is going to be versus somewhere else, NorCal. But in this case, LA Chargers are taking the win against Cincinnati.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm all in on Justin Herbert. Cincinnati's their record is good, but they're still a little too inconsistent for me. Like one week they look great, and the next week they look like the old Bengals. So, yeah, give me the Chargers. And then the next game, I know you don't want to talk about it, but we have to. This is a contractually obligated topic of discussion on this episode, even though we have no contracts, but I'm just making it up as we go. So, the 6-5 Niners going on the road to face the 3-8 Seattle Seahawks. Who you got, KC?
This game is going to be really interesting. And of course, I'm going to tell you right here, right now, I am a diehard Seahawks fan, so I'm going for the Seahawks. However, how are we going to do? I do not know. Last time that we played the San Francisco 49ers, we did amazing. However, after the experiences and the ups and downs that we are going through and the challenges that we're facing, it's going to be a tough one to see through. But of course, I'm going to say the Seahawks no matter what. So, Seahawks.
My head obviously says Niners. My heart is going to say Seahawks for a couple reasons. One, it is in Seattle. Niners have no Debo, no Warner. So, their best offensive player this year is out, and probably their second best defensive player besides Bosa is also out. But more than anything else, I kind of want to see the Seahawks win just because Niners fans are so damn annoying when their team has any kind of victory. I have convinced myself I'd rather see the Niners lose just for my own sanity because 3 weeks ago, they were terrible. Break it all down, start Trey Lance, fire Shanahan, blah, 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 blah. 3 wins later, now all of a sudden, they're in the Super Bowl. Can't be stopped. We bring on anybody. And it just drives me up. I know every fan at some point is a homer, but they are just so the world is ending and we're the kings of the world so often. There's no in between, and it drives me crazy. So if you're going to give me the choice between happy 49er fan versus sad 49er fan, I'm going to take the sad 49er fan, not because I'm mean, but just because the happy Niner fan is just so damn annoying I can't take it anymore.
Right.
I don't know how you live with one.
You should see the family.
Again, sometimes I wish we could do video because the face you said as you said that was priceless.
You should meet the family. Showing up to a 49ers family meetup is not the ideal with your Seahawks t-shirt, and it's the non-ending talk.
I heard one guy on the radio on the way home today. He was talking about how he's excited that the Niners are going to be the one to end the Seahawks dynasty, and the Seahawks are looking in the rearview mirror and all that other stuff. And I'm sitting there thinking, 5 minutes prior to that, you were gloating how great the Niners are because they're 5-time champions, but you haven't won anything since the 90s. Okay, our next game. The 6-5 Denver Broncos are going into Arrowhead to face the 7-4 Chiefs on Sunday night. Katie, who you got?
I'm going to give it to Chiefs. I want the Chiefs to win on this one. I think Denver's going to collapse and Chiefs is going to take this.
So once again, I'm conflicted.
Why?
Because I was going to pick the Chiefs, but I really don't want to agree with you. But at the same time, every time I have picked against Denver, they've won. So
exactly.
So do I want to pick Kansas City knowing Denver will win and therefore you're wrong, or do I just want to pick Denver knowing that then Kansas City will win and I'm wrong? You know what? I'm doing it. I'm going with this week's okay. I'm taking Denver just so I can go opposite of Katie.
Wow. Okay. You know what? I want you to remember that, and I want everybody to remember what he just said. He's, just to go up.
Oh no. Broncos are losing because I picked them. Promise you that. You ain't gotta remember nothing. I'm gonna remember it. I'm telling you what's gonna happen. But I'm just gonna go with Denver just out of spite.
Too easy.
So our last game of the week's the Monday Nighter. I know who you're picking, so I'm gonna pick first on this one. But the 8-4 Patriots are going into Buffalo to face the 7-4 Bills. Again, out of spite, but it is in Buffalo and the weather's getting colder. Of course, that may not matter to New England, but go ahead, give me the Bills. They haven't looked great. They got to wake up at some point, and New England just can't keep winning. I'm sorry. They got to lose eventually, so eventually I'll be right, but give me the Bills.
And you know exactly who I'm going to go for, so I'm going to say give me the Patriots on this one.
Okay, now we got the NFL out of the way. Next topic, we're going to step down a level, and we're going to talk some college football.
Can we talk about something else?
On to our next topic, college football, and more specifically, what was that? Either commit to the horns or don't do them at all. Don't give me that sad mark at the end. What was that?
I mean, I'm sorry. Ever since we read the rating schemes on how they rate the college footballs, not based on performance and how they're actually winning and doing, it's a tough subject.
Okay, well, if it makes you feel better, we're not going to talk about that because I'm kind of with you. Like, I don't tell me when they make their final decision, and I'll tell you how wrong they are at that point.
Yeah.
So specifically, we're going to talk about the Lincoln Riley going to USC. I mean, he's not the only one, but I think he's the biggest surprise move right now in college football. Chip Kelly just left Notre Dame for LSU. That's surprising too. A couple other coaches have gone on to other things, but I do think with the coaching carousel, it has also led to some extensions just so teams can hold on to their coaches. Like James Franklin just got extended by Penn State out of the blue because they're probably paranoid somebody's going to go steal James Franklin. But I always find college coach extensions funny because they could extend 1 year and be gone the next still. It absolutely means nothing. So you're just throwing money down the toilet. But
right.
Anyway, Lincoln Riley, he's accepted to be the coach for the USC Trojans now. He had 5 seasons at Oklahoma where he went 55-10. 4 of those 5 seasons, he had 4 consecutive Big 12 titles and 3 college football playoff appearances. Last week, though, they lost to Oklahoma State 37-33, and they've now lost 2 of their last 3 games. They were in the playoff until those last 3 games. Now it's get out of here, see you next year.
Yeah.
Also, with him leaving, Oklahoma's already lost, last time I checked, 7 commitments to Oklahoma. One of those, I forget the quarterback's name, but one quarterback is already committed to USC to follow Riley. So good news for you there, Katie. I think he's like the 2nd-rated quarterback in the country or something like that. Everybody's talking about how he's got Big 12 ties, and so recruiting is going to be an issue. But I don't think it's going to be an issue because when I dove into their roster, he already had a lot of California kids at Oklahoma. So right. if you're convincing them to leave California to come to Oklahoma, I'm pretty sure you have a good idea how to keep them in California. Now, the funniest part about this is he's not going to coach their bowl game, but do you know who is going to coach Oklahoma's bowl game?
No, who?
Bob Stoops is coming back to coach Oklahoma in their bowl game.
Wow. Okay.
The man retired in 2017 and was replaced by Lincoln Riley. So it all comes full circle. Clearly, he's not going to be the coach of the future, but I just think it's hilarious that their plan of attack is not to give a coordinator a shot, not to give an assistant coach a shot. Let's go get Bob Stoops, who hasn't coached a game in damn near 5 years, and have him coach our bowl game. But anyway, Kate, I wanted to give you the floor on this because you're the big USC fan. What are your thoughts on you guys basically sweeping Lincoln Riley away from Oklahoma?
I honestly think this is going to be a good change-up settings for the USC team. I mean, definitely he has a lot of work to put in towards and trying to fix up a team from the bottom going up. Not only that, but I mean, you got to start with the team that's already built. I mean, I'm pretty sure recruiting is not going to be an issue, but to get the team where it needs to be, he's going to start moving a lot of these players around just to get to see and get a feel where they should be and where they shouldn't be. And so I honestly hope USC starts to crawl its way back to the top. But, it's going to take a little bit, but I think he's going to be able to manage to do so. That's my take on it. And especially if I start seeing USC being one of the competitors they used to be, I will be tuned in again. But as of right now, we shall see.
Well, and just so you know, I don't know if you saw this or not, he's kind of already set his own expectations because he has fully said that he intends to make USC the mecca of college football again. I would say no pressure, but he put his own pressure on.
And I think that's a goal setting that he set himself that he already knows he's going to complete. So trying to see where he's going to come from, I want to see this happen. And not to mention, I mean, right now the team is built on bad habits. So I want him to break these habits and break these players and build them and mold them to where they need to be again.
Yeah, the only reason I would kind of want USC to be successful, because I really don't give a damn about USC, to be blunt. But
Mm-hmm.
what I will find interesting is when USC was the USC from Reggie Bush, Matt Leinart days, they were basically LA's professional football team because the Chargers weren't there, the Rams weren't there. They had no pro team, so USC was basically their professional football team. If USC does return to being, quote, the Mecca, I'm going to find it very interesting to see if the NFL of all sports takes a second seat to college football if the Trojans become more popular than the Rams and the Chargers. Is that evil of me to want to see that just to see LA infighting?
No, it's not evil. I think it's realistic.
Oh, I should have known.
I want to see it too. So, I mean, I'm with you on that one.
So that's enough college football. We already gave it more time than it deserves. Again, let us know when the Final Four team's in, and we'll talk about it more.
Right.
Until then, we're going to go ahead and move on to a much better topic. The next topic we're talking about is the NBA. So, Kate, last week I made the joke that, hey, all these great storylines going on in the NBA, but it took LeBron getting suspended for us to actually mention the NBA, which, by the way, Senior LeBron in the COVID protocol, out the next 10 days at a minimum. But the topic I want to talk about is the Phoenix Suns, the team that has a 17-game win streak, the team that officially is the best team record-wise in the NBA because they're tied with Golden State, but they just beat Golden State, so therefore we're the best team in the NBA as we speak. I say we like I'm on the team. The Suns are the best team in the NBA as we speak. They started 1-3. Everybody was like, what's wrong with the Suns? And they said, you know what? You're right. Let's just win 17 in a row. What I find interesting, Katie, throwing some stats at you, during the streak, they've had 6 different players be the top scorer in the game, which last time I checked, there's only 5 players in the starting lineup, which means there's at least a game where a bench player led the team in scoring. So they're pretty balanced. They just went out to the East Coast, swept 4 games, which included wins over the Knicks and Nets in back-to-back nights, and they're 3rd in the league in points per game. They were 4th in assists, and this was heading into their game last night. I haven't checked it since last night. It may be even better. But I think the biggest difference this year from last year, they're 5th in the league in defensive rebounds and 6th in the league in steals. And that was our problem once we got to the finals last year, is all of a sudden we couldn't rebound and we couldn't get any turnovers. Right. So as a lifelong Suns fan, I am used to hearing all the excuses when my team is good of the yeah buts. And the biggest one I heard up until recently was, yeah, they got this streak, but they haven't played anybody. And I'm like, really? They haven't played anybody. They just beat the Knicks, which I know a couple years ago that would have been a joke, but the Knicks are better. And last night went toe-to-toe with the Nets, who many say by a landslide is the best team in the East. And then they beat the Knicks, and the following night they beat those same Nets in Brooklyn. So back-to-back nights, they took out 2 big teams in the East. Then they come home, and they beat the Warriors, the one team that everybody said was clearly better. Now, we're going to play them again on Friday, them being the Warriors, so turnabout may be fair play because Booker is now out with a hammy, but they're on a roll.
And I'm not going to deny you on that. They are on a roll. And it's, I disagree with that huge statement that you said that they haven't versus anybody huge or anybody on the big league. They have faced a very good amounts of competitors. I mean, last night's game was pretty close and pretty good too with the Warriors. The Warriors have always been, up in San Francisco's top basketball team that they look up to. And it's been coming for years. They've been getting better and better. And honestly, they're up on their game. So it's completely BS on that statement. And I agree. The Suns deserve the win. So congrats to you.
Not to me, to them. I'm not on the team.
Oh
As
yeah,
much
to
as I
them.
say the we and us, and I'm technically
But
not on the team.
you're technically a fan, so congrats.
So, but again, with the excuses, all I heard today was, "Oh, well, they won, but Steph Curry had a bad game." Well, my retort to that is, how do you know that wasn't the Suns' defense? Yeah, he had some open looks, but he wasn't running free like he normally is.
Right.
The defense was making him work through a lot more traffic than he's used to. That may have thrown off. Katie, he airballed twice last night.
Yeah, I
When's the
saw.
last time you saw Curry airball anything, let alone
Never.
twice in one night?
Never.
But I could just wrap it up, this topic, with one thing that happened after the game. Devin Booker went ahead and tweeted out that it was a no-lose November. They did not lose a game in the entire month of November.
Wow.
Enough said.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, enough said. So.
Okay, now that I've got my gloating out of the way, now that Katie's got her USC gloating out of the way, we're going to go ahead and we're going to get a little more serious on our next topic. Our final topic is the Minnesota Viking defensive end, Everson Griffen, and more generally, athletes' mental health nowadays. So on November 24th, Everson Griffen, he called the police about 3 a.m. saying somebody was inside his home, and he reportedly told police that he fired a weapon, but nobody was injured. The police were unable to locate an intruder once they got there, and then at that point, apparently Griffin refused to come out of his home. He had posted some videos on Instagram saying somebody was trying to kill him, and in those videos he's seen holding a gun. They finally got him to come out of his home about 1:30 p.m., and they were able to get him to a healthcare facility. From the football side of the house, the Vikings went ahead and placed Griffen on the non-reserve football illness, meaning he's sidelined for at least 3 games. But Katie, to be blunt, he's just the latest example of not just football players, but athletes that we all need to be more aware of their mental health. Now, a lot of the people I'm getting ready to tell you have become aware of their issue, which is great. But Griffen is another reminder that as much as people are coming out about their mental health, at the same time, there's probably still plenty of athletes out there that are not.
Right.
I know a couple weeks ago, A.J. Brown opened up about how he tried to attempt suicide about a year ago. Calvin Ridley earlier this year just said, hey, I need a break from football to address mental health. But this isn't just NFL, because Naomi Osaka, the tennis player, she drew a lot of headlines when she withdrew from tournaments just because she's like, I mentally can't talk to media. And I'm pretty sure everybody knows what happened with Simone Biles in the Olympics,
right,
where she literally withdrew from Olympic events to focus on her mental health, which was by far a first that I had ever seen. And the list goes on and on. Allie Raisman, Michael Phelps, Kevin Love, DeMar DeRozan, Drew Robinson, and Ryan Butcher, a couple baseball players that have been doing it as well. It is just mind-boggling. And I guess it shouldn't be mind-boggling considering the number of athletes out there. But it is just mind-boggling. From me, I grew up in a time when you're playing sports, if it wasn't a physical injury, the answer was always suck it up. So it's mind-boggling that it's taken us this long to realize that if you're not right mentally, how can you be right physically playing a sport? And I'm glad we're getting there. I'm just afraid we have more people that aren't coming out. But I've been talking for a while, Katie. So, what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, it's a huge price that's coming up on athletes right now, especially with mental health issues that are currently arising within them. You know, this is something that has been here for over years and years, and nobody has really taken the time to sit down with somebody, one of the athletes, and be like, what's going on? Physically, everybody's always physically either okay or they're always checking out if they are okay. If not, okay, get some break time, make sure your bones, make sure your muscles are getting the recovery they need, and let's get back to it. But no, deep down, athletes are built strong. athletes are known to be like a wall. They're known to have this defensive line that they will show no weakness. And that is because, and sad to say, in sports, your mentality is push through it, get that win, let's get it. And that's pretty much what it's been all around. And I could personally speak from personal experience being injured from, as I played soccer for almost, I want to say, 16 years of my life. And the moment I injured my knee, there came a point where I was mad, depressed, and I was pretty sad to say that I was always feeling pain. One, but the fact that I had to choose between either my physical health versus playing on with this injury and making myself suffer, I knew that I was coming to an end with the sport that I truly loved and grew up on. So that's just one of many. And I could tell you that all these players that are coming out, all these athletes that are speaking out, it's about time. Nobody really takes that chance to kind of speak to these athletes and say like, hey, what's really going on? Do you feel okay? Are you like, sports puts a huge stress factor on these athletes alone. The training that's involved, the people that they have to compete against, the media that talks so much, even though they don't know the actual truth that's actually happening. And unfortunately, there's events that happen to these athletes, like for one with a lot of the gymnastics with, for example, Ali Raisman from Larry Nassar's events. Nobody should struggle with PTSD because of these events. First of all, these events shouldn't even occur. And, there's so many things that happen behind the scenes of an athlete. To build the athlete, there has to be training. There has to be moral support. There has to be just the nutrition part, the diet, and making sure your coach is up on you and making sure they're tracking everything that you're doing. There's just so many factors that a lot of people tend to put behind them and just focus on the outcome of their performance. And nobody really takes the time to say, hey, like, what happens behind the scenes? What can we get a little bit more of the inside scoop to see what the daily struggles of an athlete actually is? So I'm really glad that this is a topic that's starting to come up. And I know the more and more that people are starting to come out, hopefully the more people start to kind of reveal what their true feelings of being an athlete it's like. And there's more recognition in that. And maybe I hope there's more help and more awareness and more accessible tools that they're going to be able to reach out to in case they're going through something very similar to many others. For sure, like Simone Biles, when she came out with leaving the Olympics because of the stress and the mental health that she was going through. Michael Phelps came out also about his depression, and he said, she's not the only Olympic that has wanted to pull out. I've had my share moments where I was depressed. I was mentally unstable, and I was just not ready to face the world. It's people that are athletes that are, holding each other's back and making sure that they're going to that they know that they got each other's back. And I think that needs to be put more to make sure that instead of media talking all these rumors and making a big fuss of what this person did in X, Y, and Z, like, no, like, why doesn't media take a little bit more time of just making it known to the people? Like, hey guys, like, this is just for you guys to be aware that mental health is something that not only regular people go through, but your athletes, your the people that are put on front of TVs, so many people go through this, and it's a huge topic and it's a never ending war that we're going to have. So definitely, I'm glad that this is becoming more aware, and I hope to see a very future bright change for sports ahead.
Yeah, and like you said, like Michael Phelps, he's kind of, from what I could tell, become the poster child of the seriousness of athletes' mental health, because he's now doing commercials and he's trying to get awareness brought to it. Like, hey, just because I'm training, just because I'm performing well, doesn't mean everything's right in my world. And I will add one little caveat to what you were saying, because you were saying a lot of the media needs to realize what's going on. It's not just the media; it's the fans.
Oh yeah,
because that's probably one of the biggest downsides of social media is now every fan has access to their athletes to literally tell them how bad they think they are. And that's got to be a rough situation. Like, imagine people constantly telling you like, hey, you missed that shot, you suck.
Yeah, and it's kind of like we all have our off days. Like, yeah, okay, cool, fan, you're telling me I suck, but remember that rough time you had at work? Same thing you go through, I'm going through. And this is something that it sucks. It really does. It just sucks that media, social media is kind of allowing this. I wouldn't say I guess you could tie it in with, but like a lot of cyberbullying. It's not cyberbullying, but just a lot of like these rude comments of not being aware of what the athlete's truly going through. And at this point, I'm starting to see that athletes are not taking sports as, because for me, a sport is something you want to do out of heart. It's just blood, sweat, and tears that you're doing and pouring out from heart because you love the sport. But nowadays, it just seems like these athletes were born and raised to love it, but then they are slowly being demolished from everything that's making this sport just harder and harder to love and play.
Oh yeah, and it's not far from cyberbullying when you actually break down the comparison between two. Like a lot of fans are like, well, what do they have to be complaining about? They make a lot of money to play a game, and it's almost like I hate to say this, but it's almost like they're a piece of meat mentality. Like they're here to entertain, they're here to perform. Like they're not a bunch of dancing monkeys; they're human beings. So
I'll come back with a name that I'm trying to mention of the athlete, but an athlete once put out that, I will give up the fame, the money, everything that I have earned from playing this sport just to be able to play it from heart again and not through what people want me to play through. And tough to say, like, it's rough. It's seriously rough. You got these people that have been training and training every time, every day since they were young just to be criticized if they do one wrong move. And it's just, it needs to be aware that this is not okay.
Oh, like one of the, I guess the, could say the earliest examples when I saw people come to the defense of an athlete's mental health was Cam Newton after they lost the Super Bowl. Now, to be fair, Cam Newton all season long, they would talk, they would play their game, and Cam Newton's response was basically, if you don't want me to talk, then stop me. So in the Super Bowl, they stopped him. And in the post-game presser, he ends up just walking out of the presser. And a lot of people were like, that's completely unprofessional. How could he? He's got a media obligation. But the part that people forget is within the line of sight of him, they were interviewing a player from the winning team who's boasting and bragging and doing all this other stuff. And the first thing I thought of is, look, I'm not saying Cam Newton shouldn't have walked out. I think he probably should have, but mainly because of what he said during the season. You want to beat me, stop me. But at the same time, whoever set it up to where the winning team was still with an eye shot of the losing team, that person needs a discussion too, because a lot of people went after him for his professionalism or lack thereof, but there were also just as many people that were like, but y'all also put him in a terrible situation. Imagine you're in your job and your boss basically tells you you're doing a terrible evaluation, but right there in the next desk over, another boss is telling one of the person that's taking your job how awesome they are. You think you're going to stick around for that either? No, you're going to be pretty pissed yourself.
Yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised if they leave for that reason either. So
all right, that's the 10th episode in the books. Casey, if they want more of you, where can they find you?
They can always find me on Twitter at Katie17287. And of course, you can always reach Shawn Brady at
Shawn_Brady82. And you could find us, the show, on Twitter as well at Excuse My Frenemy. But there's another place you could find us, and we just learned this a little bit ago. Folks, you could find us on Google. If you just type in Excuse My Frenemy, the first search result is my and Katie's smiling faces and our cover art for our show. So if you can even find us on Google if you forget all our little hashtags and Twitter handles and all that good stuff. So Google us.
And please don't be shy to let us know what you guys want to hear next week. What are some cool, fun topics you guys want to talk about? The holidays are coming up. What are some gift ideas you guys want to throw out? And of course, please throw us some frenemy comments out there. Of course, respectfully, but I mean, tell us if you don't believe the Seahawks are going to win. Just say it up front. I wouldn't mind talking to you for a little bit, but
I don't believe the Seahawks are going to win.
Bye, Shawn.
Okay, Casey. I'll see you next week.
Later, guys.